Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today on the Poppystamps blog. I have a video showing you how to make the fall thank you card. This card uses a couple of the new die sets from Poppystamps 2017 holiday release. So let's get started. My card starts with a standard A2 base. I have a piece of cardstock cut to 8.5 by 5.5, and I am scoring at 4.25. At this point, don't fold your card base in half. You'll see why a little later. I am using the Circle Bump Borders die set. It creates a bit of interest on the lower edge of my card. It also creates an area for me to put my wreath. I am positioning it on the bottom of the front of my card base, and I will put some tape on the ends just to keep it in place before I run it through my die cut machine. To create my wreath, I'm using the Stitched Oak and Stitched Maple Trio die sets. I keep them intact. I don't snip these apart. That way there is less chance for them getting lost in my room or suddenly turning into a fascinating cat toy and being swatted off my table into the trash can. Here I have several scraps from my scrap pile. I'm sure you can all relate. We all have scraps we just can't part with. So this wreath was the perfect opportunity to use some of these scraps up. I still have quite a few. As you can see, out of each color, I'm using both die sets, and since they're intact, it makes it much easier to cut several at once. Here is my pile of fall leaves. And if you noticed, I am only using the small and medium leaves. I'll use the large ones a little later on another project. I'm creating a wreath base using one of the pointed circle frames. It was much easier to arrange on a frame like this instead of attempting to put it directly on my card base. It really helped to keep the wreath more circular. I took my wreath base and started to add my leaves. I'm only applying glue to the bottom of the leaf. It makes it much easier to tuck all your leaves in as you go around your wreath base. I will be speeding this up so you aren't bored to death with me attaching leaves. But as you can see, you can fiddle with them a bit, especially if you use liquid glue that doesn't dry fast. As you can see, I am just putting the leaves in no specific order, just whatever is pleasing to you. And you can just keep adding them, as many or as few as you like. I feel having at least 4, 5, or even 6 different colors of cardstock really adds interest to the wreath. You're going to see my wreath go a little bit off camera here pretty quick, and that's because, as I previously mentioned, my cats feel my craft table is also their playground, and one of them jumped up and decided that the leaves probably looked like catnip to him. I'm not sure what it was, but I was able to save the leaves, and I kind of lost the top of my frame there. But you get the idea. Not much you can do when you have little fur babies hanging around wanting your attention. I'm placing the last leaf, and it's looking pretty good. However, I thought on that left side one more small leaf would fill it in, and I just added it. That's what you can do. You can just add as you like. We're back to our card base now, and I'm using some printing paper with a piece of Post-it tape that I'm aligning on the fold of my card base. I'm going to flick the front of my card base with some metallic watercolors. I'm using a warm gold color, and for me, I find it easier to flick by just tapping on the edge of an acrylic block. Off camera, I did flick my wreath also. My sentiment is from the Little Kindness stamp set. Great little stamp set, great sentiments. You should really check it out. I stamped my sentiment using a stamp positioning tool and VersaFine ink onto a piece of cardstock measuring 4 by 5 1/4. I added my sentiment inside using a tape runner and checked the positioning of my wreath on the front. For my thank you, I use the thank you streamer. It's a wonderful scripty die cut. Just love this. So many uses. I cut it 3 times from one of my wreath cardstocks and applied spray adhesive to the front of one. I am not very good at using liquid glue on the small scripty die cuts. Doesn't work for me. So off camera I sprayed the front of the first thank you, and then I'm attaching the second thank you on top of that. The spray adhesive does not seem to dry immediately. Although it might feel a little sticky, the stickiness does go away. And then I use my tweezers to help position the second die cut on top of the first. Then once again, I'm going to spray the thank you. And attach the third die cut on top. It gives it some great dimension, and it's really quite easy. I think it's easier than it looks. So on the front of my card, I'm adding glue to the back of my wreath base and positioning on the front of my card. And then I am double checking the placement, make sure I'm not covering my sentiment, and placing an acrylic block on top until it has dried. To add my sentiment on the card front, I did the same thing. I sprayed the back of my thank you die cut and added it to my card base. One nice thing about using the spray adhesive is it doesn't dry instantly, and it will give you a little bit of room to readjust if you need to. Here is my finished card, and once the thank you had dried, I snipped the end off and added a little twine bow to the bottom of my wreath. I hope you have enjoyed this fall tutorial today using a couple of the new die sets from Poppystamps 2017 holiday release. It's a great way to use some scraps and create a fun card. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.